This is going to go behind your reading tab. Thank you. You're welcome.
I love how I think overview.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes, overview of reading. There we go. Right behind overview of reading. Okay, so how many of y'all remember reading first? Y'all were probably in school, but did you, any of you teach during that time? All of that was based on the, it all came out of the National Reading Panel's report. And then President Bush kind of started his reading initiative when he became president based on that work, that body of work. And what they did was not new research. They actually went in and they looked at 100,000 research studies about reading, and they did a meta-analysis of all those studies, and out of that came the National Reading Panel report. They actually looked at 10,000. There were over 100,000 from the 1960s up until the early 2000s, and then they looked at 10,000 of those, and then they did a meta-analysis of 10,000 of those. And they found that there are 5 pillars. Do y'all know what they are? There's phonemic awareness, systematic, explicit phonics instruction, fluency, comprehension, and vocabulary, right? And so phonemic awareness, we know pretty well in Arkansas. That is the knowledge of how spoken words breaks down into individual sounds or phonemes. And then phonics is the knowledge that letters of the alphabet represent those phonemes. It can be one letter, those are called graphemes, one letter grapheme, or graphemes that are more than one letter, like vowel teams. And readers who are skilled in phonics can sound out words that they haven't ever even seen before. They can just read them and figure them out. Fluency is the ability to recognize words easily and read with greater speed and accuracy and prosody. We'll talk about all that in a minute. Children gain fluency by practicing. Guided oral reading is not guided reading, but it's reading aloud while getting guidance and feedback from a skilled reader, a tutor, or a teacher. Teaching vocabulary words by teaching new words either the way they appear in text or by introducing new words separately prior to reading or after reading. That aids in instruction and also reading comprehension. Oh, there it is. And then that leads to reading comprehension strategies. So they said there were several that were beneficial, and we'll talk about those too later, but reading comprehension has to be explicitly taught. So all of those findings were pulled together by the National Reading Panel, and then George W. Bush used that as his basis of his plan for No Child Left Behind. And we're going to look at how we see those in the Take Flight program. The first one is accuracy. Kids have to be able to read accurately. It's important that they are able to decode accurately. And then accuracy is the ability to decode single words correctly with freedom from mistake or error. They don't make any mistakes. Very, very accurate. Deficits in phonological awareness reflect the core deficit in dyslexia. So when they can't decode accurately and they are dyslexic, it's because they have typically a phonological difference. One way I haven't shown y'all this yet, y'all haven't seen this model, but one thing that we do daily is code and read. We teach kids to code the words and then read the sentences. And that aids in their accuracy. It actually provides a scaffold for them. And we'll go over this later in the week, but this is what it would look like. It provides a scaffold that we can take away slowly. We can just deconstruct that scaffold as it's no longer needed. But it's very helpful at first. And some kids really like it, really enjoy doing it. Another attribute is automaticity, and that's being able to read accurately and quickly. They have to be able to read automatically. Automaticity is accurate and effortless word identification at the single word level. And we do that as adults. Children have to have practice. So let me give you an example of words that are not read automatically from, y'all know brown bear, right? So it would sound like this: brown bear, what do you see? That's not automatic, right? The ability to read and comprehend depends on rapid and automatic word recognition of single words. So slow and inaccurate decoding are best predictors of deficits in reading. One component of that is the fry list of instant words. Now, we call them, you might call them heart words and you might call them trick words, but these words are really high frequency words too. They're not all non-decodable words. A lot of them are decodable. They may not be decodable yet to early readers, but they're really, some of them are decodable and some of them are irregular, but they are, it's taken from the first, let's start that over. The list is taken directly from 300 Instant Words by Edward Fry. The first 100 and their variations make up about 50% of all written materials. It's a lot, y'all. If they can read those instantly and they know them by sight, then that's half of the battle, right? The first 300 words and the variations make up about 65% of all written material. We'll learn more about instant words as we go and kind of how we need to adapt that in Arkansas. So Edward Fry's list of words, first 300, we do them every day and it can be taken home for homework. Take Flight introduces the first 300 words. Students practice the words every day, and they will be given practice to do at home with their instant words. So let's look at what do y'all think it means?
Was it Safari maybe?
Maybe it's in Safari. Okay, here we go. So this is an example of a passage at a 4th grade reading level with the first 100 words boxed out. And that's pretty impressive, right? They have got to be able to know those automatically. We can't sound out every one of those words. So it takes a lot of the work out if they already know those. The next part, you haven't, well, you did. You saw the rap. I did the raps with just set letters and sounds, but it will move to words. So the students go over the rap every day. Rap practices what was taught that day in that lesson. It reviews syllable patterns that were presented in previous learning too. So it'll be CVC at first or vowel consonant at first, and then it'll continue to add the syllable patterns, but it's practicing that skill that was taught during that lesson. We'll learn more about rap later on, but this is what it looks like. This is what the student page would look like. This is an example of closed syllables and vowel consonant E, and then a mix of them at the bottom. And it's taught explicitly daily in the Take Flight program. The teacher book looks like this. So you'll have a choice of which ones you can do. There's a student book based on that previous one. So there's short vowel, words with 4 phonemes or blends. So we have accuracy, have to be accurate, they have to be automatic, read them in an instant, and rate. Rate is not just about reading fast. So we start rate practice in book 3 on lesson 36. We don't do it in books 1 and 2. It's time practice to increase speed while maintaining accuracy and automaticity. At one of our seminars, you'll learn how to do the rate packets. We're not gonna worry about that yet, but it is part of a daily lesson starting with 3. The attributes of reading are accuracy, we said that, automaticity, rate, and then prosody. Have y'all heard that word before? Yeah, we've all heard that, right? So prosody, I've heard it explained as like the music of language, of reading. It's contextual reading at a smooth and even pace with expression. So it's really what makes it sound good. To read with expression, readers have to be able to chunk phrases together. They need to know how to pause at the right places and when to change their emphasis and their tone of voice and their pitch. So that's something that has to be taught. It doesn't come naturally. And if children haven't been read to a great deal, they may not know what that needs to sound like. A reader who lacks prosody may sound kind of monotone or choppy when they read a passage. So let's go back to the example of brown bear, brown bear. Listen to this one. Brown, bear, what do you see? Or this, brown bear, what do you see? You see the difference? Well, children don't automatically know how to do that. It has to be taught, and our kids, we have to really explicitly teach and model that for them. How do you think that might affect their comprehension? Yeah, I mean, they aren't gonna be able to keep up. It's not gonna make sense.
They're not gonna know how to read questions.
Right.
I mean, a lot of times when someone's talking to you and they form it as a question, you hear the question mark at the end.
That's right.
You know,
That's right.
and so if they don't, if we're not teaching them about prosody, they're not gonna know the inflection that goes with it.
That's right. They won't. So beginning in lesson 7, we start to have explicit instruction in prosody by integrating phrases and sentences into every lesson in a variety of ways. Prosody is developed by reading instant words, by coding and reading, and by dictation. So all of those come together to make fluency, a fluent reader. All of that fits into fluency. I often say, you know, fluency it's an effect, it's not a cause. So if this isn't here, what part of that is missing, right? It's an effect, it isn't a cause, although a lack of fluency can cause serious issues in comprehension. So let's look at what fluency is. Fluency is rapid, episodic flow with which a skilled reader reads. When a fluent reader reads aloud, it sounds as if he or she is speaking. His or her reading is fluid and accurate with adequate speed, appropriate phrasing, and correct intonation. It sounds natural, like you're talking to a friend. Take Flight explicitly teaches fluency through the rate packets when we get to book 3, and through connected text when we start doing B-days. It's important to note that fluency develops over time and with substantial practice. They need a lot of practice. If we don't do those B-days, they're not going to get the practice. You can't skip the B-days. So our goal reading a word accurately, quickly, and smoothly with good expression, and that's from Sally Shaywitz. Have y'all read Overcoming Dyslexia or parts of it? Well, I love it, but it's heavy. It's a good book though. So our goal, it has little to do with speed. And kids, back during the reading first days when we were doing a lot with rate, do y'all remember that? Where we do those practice and fluency practice, kids would start reading really fast and they would try to beat a number and they would want to read very fast. And they will do that too with the rate packets. So we really have to caution them against, now this is not about how fast you can read. Fluency is really about expression and intonation. Yes, we want it to be a good rate, but if you're reading, I give mine a number and say, if you read faster than that, you're not even going to understand what you read. It's too much. So the goal of fluency has little to do with speed, but a lot to do with the time it provides for comprehension. Reading fluent is important because it provides a bridge between recognition or decoding and comprehension. So the final attribute of that is fluency leads to comprehension. So what is comprehension? We once thought that it was just a natural result of reading, that people would just naturally comprehend when they read, and when they were decoding in their oral language. But comprehension is now really viewed more complex, and those strategies have to be explicitly taught. Kids have to have background knowledge. They have to have some experience. They have to be able to think about what they're reading, that metacognitive aspect, and they have to be taught. We have to teach them. When we know that fluent readers recognize words and comprehend at the same time, and comprehension is the reason that we read in the first place, right? Have y'all ever taught a student who could read everything but couldn't tell you anything they've read? It's not as common, is it, as kids who can't decode and aren't comprehending. It's less common. They have to use their background knowledge. They have to use their vocabulary knowledge. They have to use language structure, semantics, figurative language, reading strategies, fix-up strategies. How many of our kids maybe need help with that vocabulary piece or that background knowledge piece? Yeah. So let's look at how we do that in Take Flight, what that looks like. We have a little booklet, and you'll get one. It's called The Comprehension Mystery. The steps of explicitly teaching comprehension are outlined in this little flip book. And it involves that gradual release model. So we're going to do explanation, teacher modeling, guided practice, and then application for independent practice. It's called The Comprehension Mystery flip book. The first part that we teach them to do is to preview. So they're going to preview the title and author, the visual cues, 1 or 2 paragraphs, and think about what they already know, what I already know about this subject. Do y'all remember doing this before when we used to prepare for the benchmark exam? We preview the text, we look for cues, we read a couple of paragraphs and think about what we already know, and then we make predictions. So that's the first step in the comprehension mystery book. And then the next step is to investigate, find the answers to those 6 clues: who, what, when, where, why, how, and then use that information to say, now, this is what I know now. I thought this, but now I know. Then the next one, they go back again and they investigate vocabulary or missing clues or background knowledge. So this is the third step. So it's a process, and you do it with them as you're doing. This is a comprehension day. And then we're going to solve. And we're going to solve those questions we have by using context clues, syntax or semantics, which is structure of language, and then word meanings, relationships between words, figurative language, using dictionaries and thesauruses. I don't know. I'm not sure. And then missing clues. At the very end, we have these questions that weren't answered in the text, and what are we going to do? Where do I need to go for help? So I'm going to try to find the answers to those questions that are remaining, and there are things we can do to help us. We'll learn more about this later on a comprehension day. Probably one of our seminars. And then we're background knowledge. Where do I go for help? I can go to my expert peers discussion. I can look on the computer. I can go to YouTube. And then the last part is, in 15 words or less, I'm going to retell the story. I'm going to justify my predictions or my conclusions, and I'm going to investigate further. So it's right back there. We hold that up, that little comprehension mystery. Yeah, just hold one up. It looks like that. And I think you get 6 of them. And then kids discuss. One thing we like to use, and how many of y'all have used this before? Somebody wanted, but so then we've all, anybody not familiar with that? We've used that for a long time. So we can use different graphic organizers. This is one that Take Flight has. I really like it. It's color coded to make it a little more multi-sensory. I want that to be in a big poster in my class so that I can fill it in with them. The colored squares on the organizer match the colored flags that are placed in the book. So we'll teach you how to use it. You'll have flags that color, and as they find the answer in the text, they'll stick that flag in the text, and then they can go back to use it to write a summary. I really like that part. So Texas Scottish Rite Comprehension classroom component follows the reciprocal teaching model, and it uses multisensory discovery and direct instruction to enhance their comprehension skills. So it's teacher directed, teacher guided, student directed. Everyone takes part in the learning process, the teacher and the student, and all the skills are modeled in that way. So let's go back over it. What did you learn about accuracy? Or what do you know? What is accuracy?
Less.
Right. Yeah, it's decoding correctly, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. What about authenticity in your own words?
Yeah.
Accurate.
Without thought.
Without thought. Yeah, without thinking. Yeah, when you look at a word, you know it, but you know, it's instantly known. What about rate? What do we need to know about rate?
It is time, but it's also accurately and automatically.
Yes, that's right, it is. But reading fast is not that, just super
too
fast
fast, not
reading,
too slow.
not too
Just
fast,
right.
just right reading. What about prosody? What's that?
With expression.
With expression, intonation, that's right. Fluency is what?
But not for those together.
Put together, that's right, and comprehension is understanding. That's right, really, comprehending is more than just remembering. It is partially remembering, but it's really understanding what you've read and how to apply that way. Okay, so the next part is our reading decks. Y'all seen me do the reading decks, right? I love those decks. I love those decks. That is, for me, has been one of the biggest game changers with this program over things I've done in the past. Is that repetition daily and recall of the decks. So when we're doing it, we'll just move our clip down. We'll do the alphabet. We'll move our clip down on the reading decks, which I forgot to do. So you guys have a sheet on, I think it's on page 141. And we are going to fill that out together as we go. So this is the purpose. I have it on the slide, but you have a sheet that looks like that. So do y'all have it?
Yes.
Why don't y'all take just a minute and look over that and see if you can think about what the answers might be. Y'all can work together and answer just the top part, goals for reading deck, just this section. I can just talk about it. You don't know, it's okay. We're gonna do it together. You know the first one. How many repetitions? Did we say 3?
500, 1500.
500 and 1500.
From.
Yes. So to provide, we want to provide, we're going to give them that. I mean, think about that. Where else are they going to get the opportunity to get 500 to 1500 repetitions? They're not. So we're going to give it to them. 500 to 1500 repetitions needed to implant permanent visual recognition of letters and letter clusters blank, subconscious, automatic, reflex. What? Automaticity, yay, that's right. To associate letters, shapes, and sounds with their keywords to develop blank and blank in reading and spelling. Accuracy, and it's another F word, flexibility. Yeah, fluency would be good. That's a good one. And we want to assure students practical use of the law of probability. The decks that we use represent spellings that are true 85% of the time. So we want to give them things that are that law of probability. It's going to work in their favor. Okay, let's go to the next section. All right, so we're going to talk about what those decks are called. Y'all can talk if you want to. See if you can figure out what any of those things are. Yes. So what the first blank, ARD is the advanced reading deck, and the IRD is the initial reading deck. The initial reading deck is just the letters, right? So the first one I showed in the lessons, which just had the graphing on it, that's the IRD. And that's the ARD. I'm sorry, I said that wrong. That's the ARD. That's the initial reading deck. And I just said that wrong again. The advanced reading deck is just the letter. And the initial reading deck is the one with the picture, this one.
Keyword, yeah.
The keyword sound.
Okay.
That's the IRD. And the advanced is just the letter. I just said that wrong. A graphing is a significant unit of visual shape, a single letter or letter clusters that represent a speech sound, one sound. There's a wide separation of similar sounds and shapes. The development of the ARD deck by using computer count analysis and mirrors and touching the vocal cords, Paul Hanna discovered each sound's production. He also discovered the frequency of letters used, thus developing the order in which the letters are introduced in our decks. We use mirrors for sound discovery and awareness in order to develop that kinesthetic discrimination and memory. So when I had her look at herself in the mirror and say it, and touch her vocal cords, that's that kinesthetic discrimination and memory. So these decks our order of presentation is very purposeful and it's based on research. It's not random. Yes.
Sorry, what was Paul's last name?
Hannah.
Hannah.
Paul
Okay.
Hanna.
I just want to make sure I didn't miss.
Yes. So the last one, this is interesting. For foreign language choice in high school, strongly suggested for dyslexic students to take, because foreign languages can be. Actually, yes, that's one of them, and American Sign Language. American Sign Language, yeah.
So which one was like, I'm sorry,
American Sign Language, and actually Latin is one too. It says in our notes that strongly suggested for dyslexic students to take Latin or American Sign Language for their foreign language choice in high school. My grandson is dyslexic. He's just finished the 4th grade, starting 5th grade, and they start Latin in 3rd grade at his school. And I don't mean roots. They literally learn Latin, and he makes a 100 on every Latin test. I don't know why that is makes sense to him. It's fascinating. Yeah. The next one, who's not dyslexic, is coming up. He's going to be in 3rd grade this year, and he's learning Latin this year. He thinks that's so big.
I wonder how he'll do with this.
I wonder too. Yeah, I do too. Okay, so our procedures for daily use and rearrangement of the card decks. Each student or group has to have their own ARD and IRD. So you'll have a box with an ARD and an IRD for every group or individual student with whom you work. because you can't share those decks, so you'll have different boxes for each group. Now, last year I had a couple of groups that were on the same lesson and I was able to keep it together, but invariably somebody has a class party or something and this one group didn't come, and that the other group got ahead, and so I had cards sticking up. It really is best, and the school will buy them. So it really is best to have every group have their own deck. Sit blank for one-to-one training around the corner of a table. So she and I sit across from each other. I like that better, but they can sit at the side position for one-to-one training around the corner of a table. So here I would sit and another child could sit there. You want to avoid distraction of snapping cards. And you avoid distraction in snapping cards. Avoid any noise or distraction. So you don't want that. You don't want to do that. And we want to anchor the cards on a table or a desk so that we're not doing this. So, yeah. Oh, it's upside down. Sorry. Thank you. So you don't want to hold them like this. You want to anchor them. And if you're at a reading table or you have something like this where you can hold them up, it's better. But you want to keep them so that the field of vision is stable and not moving around. So that should say anchor deck on surface, stabilizing the visual field right here, stabilizing the visual field. We want to arrange or place the cards in 2 stacks for easy mixing it up. Shuffling is the word I was looking for, shuffling. So when I'm doing this, y'all, I'm shuffling these cards every day. So I place one here, and I place the next one down. And I shuffle them daily. So tomorrow when I go through them, they're not in the same order every time. The reason we have the decks in a particular order is because it gives a wide range and gives a separation of similar sounds and shapes. Okay, and we can turn them. Thank you, Jesus. I'll cut that part off where I said thank you, Jesus.
So that's